What if I told you that for less than $1, you could make your concrete last longer than most modern buildings ever will? Sounds crazy, right? But here's the thing. This isn't new technology. It isn't some lab experiment. It's a powder that's been sitting in hardware stores, garden centers, and even kitchen cabinets for decades. And the cement industry, they've known about it the whole time. They just never had a reason to tell you. So today, we're talking about it. Stay right there, because the next 15 minutes might completely change how you think about concrete forever. Welcome back. If you've ever watched a driveway crack after 2 winters, or seen a garden wall start to crumble after just a few years, you know the frustration. You spend money, you put in the work, and the concrete still fails. And everyone you ask just shrugs and says, that's how concrete is, but that's not the full story. Concrete doesn't have to fail that fast. The Romans built structures 2,000 years ago that are still standing. Their harbors, their bridges, their baths, still there. And the secret to how they did it has been quietly sitting in plain sight. By the end of this video, you're going to know something that 99% of people laying concrete today have absolutely no idea about, and it costs about $1. Number one, let's start with the problem nobody talks about. Modern concrete is actually weaker than ancient concrete. I know that sounds backwards. We've got better technology, better machines, better chemistry, right? But study after study has confirmed that Roman concrete, after 2,000 years, is actually getting stronger. Modern concrete starts cracking within decades. Why? Because today's cement is designed for speed and profit. It sets fast, it ships easy, and it gets replaced often. That's good for business. It's not good for your driveway. The Romans were accidentally using volcanic ash in their concrete mix, a mineral additive that reacted with seawater and calcium over time to create a self-reinforcing crystalline structure. They didn't know the chemistry, they just knew it worked. And the equivalent of that volcanic ash? You can buy it right now for next to nothing. Number two, the powder is called pozzolan. Specifically, we're talking about natural pozzolans, and the most accessible form you'll find today is either fly ash, volcanic pumice powder, or the one I want to focus on most, silica fume. But before you scroll away thinking this sounds too technical, stay with me, because the most practical and affordable version of this concept is something even simpler. Rice husk ash. That's right. The ash left over from burning rice husks is one of the most powerful natural pozzolans on the planet. It's been used in rural construction across Asia and Africa for generations. My grandfather's cousin in rural Punjab used to mix rice husk ash into the mud and lime plaster on his walls. We all thought it was just an old habit. Turns out he was doing advanced materials science without knowing it. Rice husk ash is roughly 90% silica, the same compound that makes volcanic ash so effective in concrete. Number three, well, here's how you actually use it, step by step. First, you need to get the ash. If you have access to a rice mill or a farm, this is literally free. If not, it's available in small bags online or at agricultural supply stores for almost nothing. You want ash that came from slow, controlled burning, not high-temperature industrial incineration. The color should be light gray to white, not black. Black ash means incomplete combustion and lower silica content. Number four. Now here's the ratio that actually works. Research from engineering universities across Southeast Asia and the Middle East, regions where this technique never died out, consistently shows that replacing between 10% and 20% of your Portland cement with rice husk ash produces stronger, more durable concrete than cement alone. So if your mix calls for 1 bag of cement, hold back about 15% of that cement and replace it with rice husk ash by weight. That's it. Mix your concrete exactly as you normally would. The ash doesn't change the process. It just changes what happens at the molecular level as it cures. Number five, why does it work? Here's the simple science. Portland cement relies on a compound called calcium silicate hydrate to gain its strength. When the cement reacts with water, it creates this compound, but it also produces a byproduct called calcium hydroxide, basically excess lime. That excess lime is actually a weakness. It's water soluble. Over time, it leaches out, leaving microscopic pores that water gets into, freezes, and expands. And that's what causes cracks. Rice husk ash is packed with reactive silica. When you mix it into concrete, it hunts down that excess calcium hydroxide and converts it into more calcium silicate hydrate. More of the good stuff, fewer pores, denser concrete, higher resistance to water, salt, and freeze-thaw cycles. The concrete doesn't just stay strong, it keeps getting stronger for years after it's poured. Number 6. This same principle works with wood ash too, but with important differences. Plain wood ash is a weaker pozzolan because it has more calcium and potassium and less silica. But it still helps, especially in mild climates. Generations of builders across Europe used wood ash and lime mortar as a standard practice. Medieval churches were built with it. My neighbor's grandfather, who built stone walls across the Scottish countryside in the 1950s, swore by adding a handful of hearth ash to every batch of mortar. He said the old masons taught him. He had no idea he was following a tradition that went back to the Romans. If you don't have rice husk ash, wood ash from hardwoods like oak or hickory is your next best option. Softwood ash is lower quality, and avoid ash from treated wood, painted wood, or anything that's been chemically processed. You don't want those compounds in your concrete. Now quickly, if this is already saving you money and making you rethink how you approach home projects, hit that subscribe button right now. Because coming up, I'm going to show you the single most surprising application of this technique, one that most professional contractors have genuinely never heard of. And it could save you hundreds of dollars on your next repair job. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Number 7, let's talk about application. Where does this actually matter most? Driveways and pathways exposed to weather cycles. This is where the improvement is most dramatic. Standard concrete driveways in cold climates fail primarily because of the calcium hydroxide leaching I mentioned. Adding 15% rice husk ash to your driveway mix can cut water absorption by up to 40%. That means fewer freeze-thaw cracks, longer life, and less patching every spring. Fence post bases are another massive win. The base of a concrete fence post is in constant contact with soil moisture. That's the number one reason posts get loose over time. Denser, less porous concrete holds up dramatically better in wet soil. Even for small jobs, filling cracks, patching steps, setting anchor bolts, adding a little ash to your repair mix means the patch actually bonds and lasts instead of popping out after one winter. Number 8, let's talk about one more powder that gets almost no attention. Ground granulated blast furnace slag. I know it sounds industrial, and it is. It's a byproduct of steel manufacturing, but it's sold in small quantities online and at specialty building suppliers, and it performs similarly to rice husk ash as a cement replacement. In fact, in the UK and parts of Europe, building codes actually encourage its use because it reduces the carbon footprint of concrete while improving durability. The technique is the same. Replace 15 to 30% of your cement by weight. Slag concrete is particularly resistant to sulfate attack, which is the main reason concrete fails in contact with certain soils and wastewater. If you're building anything near agricultural land, drainage areas, or coastal zones, slag is worth looking at seriously. Number 9. Let's go back in history for a moment because this story gets genuinely fascinating. During World War II, engineers building military infrastructure in the Pacific, airstrips, bunkers, harbor installations, discovered that concrete mixed with volcanic ash from local islands was surviving conditions that standard military spec concrete couldn't handle. Salt water, tropical humidity, repeated heavy impact. Field engineers started quietly adding local volcanic material to mixes wherever they could find it, without waiting for official protocols. Number 10. Here's something else worth knowing. Water quality matters more than most people think when mixing concrete. Hard water, water with high mineral content, or water with even trace levels of oil or organic material all weaken the cement matrix. The old builders in arid regions, parts of the Middle East, North Africa, the Indian subcontinent, used to cure their concrete by covering it with damp burlap or straw and letting it cure slowly over days or even weeks, rather than letting it dry out fast in the sun. Slow curing, kept moist, produces significantly stronger concrete. This is free. It costs nothing but a little patience. Combine slow, moist curing with a pozzolan additive, and you're building at a level that outperforms most modern residential construction. Number 11. For those of you dealing with existing cracked concrete rather than new pours, here's a repair technique that uses the same principle. Mix a slurry of Portland cement, fine sand, and 15% rice husk ash or fly ash. Then add a small amount of liquid bonding agent, available at any hardware store for a few dollars. Clean and dampen the crack thoroughly, then press the slurry in firmly, overfilling it slightly. Cover with plastic sheeting and leave it for 72 hours. The pozzolan reaction in a thin slurry is actually faster and more aggressive than in a bulk pour, which means that repair patch will bond tightly and resist recracking better than standard cement patch products that cost 3 times as much. And now, number 12. This is the one I've been building toward. This is the application that genuinely surprised me when I first came across it, and it surprised several structural engineers I mentioned it to as well. You can use rice husk ash, not just in concrete, but in earthen construction. Adobe, rammed earth, compressed earth blocks, all of these traditional building methods suffer from the same weakness: water. Rain and moisture erode unstabilized earth construction over time. The standard modern solution is to add Portland cement to stabilize it, which works but drives up cost and carbon footprint. But adding 8 to 12% rice husk ash to an earthen mix combined with a small amount of lime creates a chemical stabilization reaction that mimics what happens in pozzolanic concrete, but in raw earth. Communities in West Africa, South Asia, and Latin America have been doing this for decades as a low-cost housing solution. It produces walls that can withstand tropical rain seasons without a cement budget. The powder that makes concrete last 100 years also makes mud walls last decades. For anyone interested in natural building, off-grid construction, or simply reducing costs on outbuildings, sheds, or boundary walls, this is genuinely one of the most useful things you can know. So let's bring it all together. Modern concrete fails early because it's designed for the market, not for longevity. The Romans didn't have better concrete by accident. They had it because they stumbled onto pozzolanic chemistry. Rice husk ash, fly ash, volcanic pumice, blast furnace slag. These are all accessible, affordable, and in some cases, completely free materials that transform standard concrete into something that genuinely lasts. The ratios are simple, the process is unchanged, and the result is measurably, scientifically better. The cement industry isn't going to put this in their advertising. The big box stores aren't going to hand you a pamphlet about it, but now you know, and that changes what you can build. If you found this useful, please leave a comment below telling me what project you're planning to use this on. I read every single one. And if you want to go deeper, my next video is going to cover lime-based renders and plasters, another ancient technology that modern construction largely abandoned, and another area where the old ways completely outperform what you'll find at a hardware store today. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Share this with anyone who's about to pour concrete, and I'll see you in the next one.